welcome back to the Isn't That Rich podcast. Today we are joined by Ashley McVicker and John Streeter. We've been doing a series on Ashley's home building process, and we are so excited to have her on for her fourth and final episode of the series.
Yeah.
Our house is done.
Yep. And
Yeah, she's finally done.
finally done. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it feels like it's taken forever. I remember when I decided to build my house, Jill was like, it's for sure going to take a year. I'm like, no, it's going to take 3 months.
I'll be done in November.
No, and it's like, I'm just now closing on my loan. I just closed last week, I think, right? And
I remember when you said that you were going to be ready for final financing, and I was like, Polly, I thought she was done with this already.
Final financing. I thought it was over.
So for sure it's taken way longer than I thought it would, but I have learned way too much.
And that's not unknown right now because we do a 12-month construction loan.
For a reason.
We're doing a lot of extensions because we're still seeing situations as a result of COVID having slowed things down, and builders are having a hard time just finding good quality people that are willing to put a 40-hour work week in.
Right.
So yeah,
That's
we're seeing the average house take 12 to 18 months to build.
Yeah.
I've got a guy who's building a large house that we're on year 3 already.
You're kidding
3
me.
years.
I think I would have an aneurysm.
Yeah. That's crazy.
He had a situation with his builder and had to fire his builder and then start doing some of the work himself. And so, yeah, he's hopefully going to be finished in the house by Christmas time.
Let me ask you a question before we jump into my stuff. If someone's having that many extensions, what's the deal? Of fees? Not what's the deal, but
minor fees. Just we have an extension fee for the paperwork.
All that.
It's just an inconvenience, and
you're just paying interest.
You're just paying interest, and you're paying a little bit higher interest on the construction loan than you would be on your permanent financing. So, we as a bank don't like to see it go that long, but it's not a big problem for us.
Hate it for our customers to have to do that.
And with some of our customers, unfortunately, they've crossed over. They started last year, and they are now at a point where rates are higher. So when we've had to do an extension, this customer that was on the 3-year plan, his rate started at 4.95. He's now at 8.5%.
So when you do an extension,
we have to go to current rates.
And it's prime, right? You do prime?
Yeah.
Wow.
The construction loan is based on prime rate, and prime's been going up the last 18 months.
Right.
So that's been the biggest problem. And when they go to permanent financing, they're going in at a higher interest rate than when they started their construction.
Golly.
Man. Wow, so much to think about.
Jill.
That construction done on time.
And I think we mentioned that to you when you started yours. Hey, realize that rates are on their way up.
I was like, John, you're a liar. They're for sure going down.
And but that's one thing that Polly and I and the other lenders have done a good job of in forewarning people. When you start this construction process, we're in an increasing rate environment, so you're going to have a rate that's going to be higher than what all these people refinanced at.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I remember getting an email from you a couple months ago, and you sent it to the mortgage department, I think, and then maybe marketing, just because we need information for marketing purposes. And you said that rates were continuing to go up, and I remember just flailing back in my work chair, and I was like, no, this wasn't in the budget. Jill just had to deal with me for 10 months, basically, of me just crying about money.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's very volatile. It's a time of volatility for sure.
They met yesterday, didn't they?
They did.
Feds met yesterday?
The Fed held the rate. There was it's going to be interesting to see what rates do today and tomorrow, because the market had been pricing the possibility of a 0.25% drop.
Oh.
And so the Feds held the line. So I haven't looked at rates yet today. We usually start getting rates about this time of the day. So after the podcast, I'll be checking interest rates and seeing what
What's
craziness happened.
Yeah.
Because we were starting to see rates trickle down a little bit as based on the idea that they thought the Fed was, so rates are probably going to tick back up for the amount that they started to drop. So it won't be a huge increase. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Ashley, let's talk about it. Give us a quick recap. What's going on with the house? Or since last episode, what's gone on?
So since last episode, Jill, I think you and I were going through just everything. I was building.
Yeah.
I had been building. I was probably in the middle of building at that point. And so I have finished building my home.
Moved in.
I am moved in.
The cabinets are up. Walls are painted.
In. It's painted. I have water. I have the whole shebang. I think my washing machine is already broke. It was, but don't worry. I just found out I had an unbalanced load. So I put like one towel in there, of course.
Adulting.
Yeah. So I'm learning lots right now. Learning so much. But yeah, I'm done. I closed on my construction loan and I have officially moved into permanent financing, and I still have not had my first payment.
But that's coming up soon.
That's coming up soon.
It's
John
the
keeps
first
reminding
today, so I'm
me.
like, is it today or is it next month?
No,
it's next month.
And that's
John,
the
give me a break.
nice thing about the construction. When you go to permanent financing, they're kind of the way mortgage loans are done. You kind of have a month delay there. And that gives a lot of homeowners a bit of breathing room, because now they're like, well, it's not just furniture. Now you've got to go in and buy dishes and towels and
$8 can openers that you think are supposed to be free.
Yeah. Food, groceries.
Because
My gosh.
even if you have an existing home and you're building a new home, many times you don't want to bring all your old stuff into a new house.
Right.
Yeah.
So many people have a yard sale and get rid of their old stuff at their current home and
Make room for
start fresh.
Yeah.
So that 30-day delay gives you a little bit of opportunity to spend some money on all the small items that you need that add up to quite a bit.
Ashley has a hard time spending money.
I do have a hard time spending money.
It kind of breaks her.
And you're probably starting to see what a lot of people don't realize is when you build a new house, you've got window coverings and floor mats.
I know, that's what I was going to, those are the two things I was going to say. That when the first time I moved in, I remember I didn't have curtains or anything. And I'm like, the world can see me. I can't stay here tonight. So it's like I have these motorhome sticky shades up right now. I've got to get these new curtains up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need all these rugs like this. You don't need it. You can live without it for a while, but you're like, this is not a home, and you do need curtains.
And that stuff's expensive when you start
John,
talking.
don't I know it? And the stuff that I want's out of this world.
Probably.
Yeah.
But, when you start, it's one thing to go to Walmart and get shades or something for one window.
Right.
Because your kid wants to change the colors in their room. When you build a new house, you've got 15 to 20 windows that you've got to cover.
Yeah, that adds up quickly. And some of them have to be custom sized and
yeah.
Don't forget about your door windows. You don't want peeping Toms in those either.
No, you don't.
So,
no, you don't.
Question for John. When you're going through the construction loan process, what are some milestones? Is there things that you have to look for with your construction loan to prepare for your final financing?
Yes. So what we work with borrowers in this situation is you work all the way up to that point to do the construction loan. And then, you do your closing and you say, boy, wow, this was great. And I say, well, you're going to be living with me for the next 12 months because the payouts. So we usually, about a third of the house is done. We kind of gauge where things are and start gauging, are they on budget? Are they not on budget? When they're halfway done. But what we do to prepare for final financing is when they're 3/4 of the way done, I try to encourage them to talk with their builders to say, what do you anticipate as a finish date? Because we can lock in an interest rate for them as much as 60 days before they're finished. So what I tell them is, if you can find a 60-day mark that you're builder says, I want to be done by this day, 60 days from that, we can start looking at interest rates. And I can start gauging, are they on the way up and we need to lock it, or are on their way down and we can kind of hold off for another 30 days.
That's good advice.
I didn't know that.
When we get to the 30-day mark, that's when we start asking for updated pay stubs, bank statements, and when do you anticipate your closing, or when do you anticipate your completion's going to be? Because that construction rate is a higher interest rate. So what I don't want to do is wait until you're done and then ask for all that, because it's like a normal mortgage. It's going to take another 30 days to close. So you're paying interest for another 30 days at a higher interest rate. So I try to get them to get everything in so that when they close or when they complete, we just have to do a final inspection and then we can close. So we're trying to close within a week or two after completion.
I have to ask you this because I know the answer to this, Ashley. Were there any unexpected delays? Because we're talking timeline with John, and we're talking 60 days, 30 days, and closing.
Yes.
So what are those unexpected delays that you had in your home building process?
As far as the bank went, sorry, it sounded like banquet. I don't think there were any delays. I just learned the process. So I didn't know like how long things took, but I mean, it was fine. I work at the bank, so we were communicating often, readily available. But as far as delays went during the building process, yes, like I said at the beginning of this, I thought I was going to be done in 3 months. I got done in 10 because I didn't know, how far people were out with their work schedules, or when you needed to call someone to come in and paint, or how long your drywall would take to dry, and all of this stuff. So I would say, Jill, the entire process was just a whole learning experience. And there were so many times I was like, I don't know what's next and what I'm doing. And so a lot of the delays came on my end, just not knowing what came next.
Okay. Was there anything listeners should recognize is going to take longer than they anticipate?
Well, honestly, I feel like I started building my house. It obviously wasn't in COVID, but still, mine was kind of like at the peak of the interest rates and all that coming back.
Pricing for building materials, all that stuff.
Yeah. And so I kind of started building when you would see these 33% increases in building materials. And I'm like, this is not what you quoted me. This was crazy. I'm like, I can't believe you could change your price on me. Like,
my bank isn't going to allow me to take out any more money.
I'm like, why would you do this? They're like, that's only good for 10 days. You're like 3 months out. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
There was actually a point right in the middle of COVID that contractors were telling people this is good for 24 hours.
I believe it.
Because they were seeing prices change on a regular, that fast of a basis.
Yeah.
And what some contractors started doing at that time is they would get a commitment from a customer, and if they could pay some money up front, they would say it would save you money because we'll buy the materials now and warehouse them at today's price so that you're not constantly seeing a price increase.
Right. Well, that's good information to know because it makes you want to pull the trigger faster.
It does.
Yeah, and lock in.
Now we're in a better situation because now we're actually starting to see prices decline.
Good.
And you may be kicking yourself because you may see...
I'm not kicking myself, John.
Okay.
I'm moved into a brand new home.
I know there's some people who have like, wow, I paid this much a year ago and now it's this price.
Yeah, and you can look at that, but...
You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, because I have a home and it's appreciating and I'm building equity in something.
And that's what we tell them is just realize that it's going to appreciate in value. So
well, and I will say this, I had things that were up here, and I've said this in other episodes, things were up here, and other things I was like, that's way less than I thought.
Yeah.
So I would say like it definitely evened out, and I think I didn't pay like the worst price for my house. Like I wasn't like, I can't afford this.
You've got it appraised at a very good value compared to what your cost was into it. So you've got a great situation.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes when you operate as your own general contractor, as you did, that's one of the good things is you can cut costs by not having that middleman. Flip side, though, is, as you were talking about just a second ago, the benefit of using a general contractor that's experienced in building, knows to call the plumber when they're at this point because they can start doing this, knows to call the painters and say, drywall's going to take a week to dry. We need you on such and such date.
Yeah.
So that's where the experience comes in.
The organization.
Is organizing and having people on the days that you know that you're going to be ready. So
Jill, so to finish answering your question, you asked me about delays. I would say like another thing is so first of all, I didn't know when like the next thing came, but also it wasn't just like your plumber comes one time and they're done.
Yeah.
Like you have to kind of weave these people in and out because once their job is done, this person comes in, but then they have to finish after that person is done. And so it was funny to see these people kind of communicate. Like they're not just, they know what comes before them and what comes after them. And they would be like, did you call I'm just using painter. Did you call your painter yet? Did you call your finisher yet? Your electrician yet? And I'm like, I thought they were done. I saw wires. Like, I don't know.
When are you going to hang my chandelier?
Yeah,
are you not doing that?
Especially with the plumber and electrician, because you have your rough in, and then there are certain points that you need them back to do things, and then final to when everything's in to get everything finished out. So, an electrician, depending on what type of light you're going to use, and if you're going, as an example, if you're going to use backlighting on cabinets in your kitchen, you're going to have your electrician there 3 or 4 times because cabinets usually the very last thing that you put in the house, and so they're going to have to come back and do all of that work. But they have to have roughed in wiring, otherwise they're drilling holes where you didn't want them to drill holes.
Re-drilling and patching.
And one of the areas that we encourage people to do is to look at solar, even if they weren't thinking about, look at solar, look at wiring for internet, wiring for satellite, wiring for all these different things, so that you don't get this house built and then all of a sudden realize, well, I'm in an area where I can't get cable, so I want a satellite. Right. Well, now I'm drilling holes in a brand new house, which if you did it when the wiring started, you could have the house all pre-wired for all those items.
I've heard they're even for electric vehicles now. Home builders should be, or homeowners or people who are building their home should be ready to have electric vehicles, plugs in their house.
They should definitely wire for a plug, whether they think they're going to have it or not.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to go ahead and wire for that special charger that you're going to need in your garage,
and if
even
you're
if you don't ever use it. And for resale value, you can say, we're already pre-wired for this, this, and this.
So this brings me to a really good talking point. I had a hard time with what you just said about it's cheaper now to just do it now. And I was like flaming mad when people would tell me that. I'm like, that's not, I don't want it now. I don't want to pay for that now. But after the fact, now that I'm glad that people push me to like even spray foam, I'm thinking about, I got spray foam and I was like, it was a little bit more costly and I didn't like that up front. But now my electricity, my electric bill, like I've been having conversations with my friends, their electric bill's $400 a month and mine's
$16. No, I'm just kidding.
$110 for July, and so now I'm like,
mine was $400 this last month.
Yeah.
You don't
so
want
now I'm
wow.
like, whew, I'm really glad somebody just pushed me a little bit and said, just pay a couple $1,000s more. And it's hard in the moment when people are telling you that and you're like, you don't care about my budget. You don't understand. Like I need these $3,000, but seriously, like do it. And Jill would tell me that all the time.
Especially on the wiring, because it's real hard to budget for those items when you aren't thinking you're going to use them, especially the electric vehicle wiring. Hey, I'm never going to buy an electric vehicle.
I don't like electric. I'm never going to have one.
So the next person that may buy your house may have an electric vehicle, and it's a huge selling point to be able to say, my house is wired for cable, it's wired for satellite, it's wired for internet, it's wired for electrical devices. The other thing about that people have to start realizing, and that we're pointing out to them, is traditionally you put a 200 amp service in your house. Because of all the electronics, electricians are starting to push 400 amp service. And if you're going to put an electric charger for an electric vehicle, you really do need the 400 amp service. And 400 amp service is it's not twice as much as 200 amp service, but it's
a lot more.
It's a lot more.
Substantially.
It's substantially more. Yeah. And a lot of people aren't thinking about that. But if you're building a house right now, it's time to go ahead and put a 400 amp service in your house because
it's not going away.
No.
The electronics aren't going to be reduced anytime soon. I can't imagine.
No.
I remember Ashley having a conversation with you about doing storage above your garage. And you're like, I'm not doing it. I'm never going to store anything. I'm like, where are you going to put your Christmas decorations? Where are you going to put anything?
Oh my gosh, I know. Jill's like, where are you going to store stuff? And now I'm like, I have this second bedroom and I'm like shoving a Christmas tree in there. I'm like, I can't do this. What am I doing? But I actually, yes, I do.
So did you not put flooring above your garage?
She wasn't gonna.
I wasn't going to. My dad made me do it.
Good.
He's like, look at the stairs I bought you. I'm like, Jill just said something about that.
Well, so many of these houses built in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, it really wasn't until probably 2000 something that people started really looking at, well, put flooring in that attic above your garage.
It's a great space.
It's a great storage place for things that don't have to be temperature controlled.
Yep.
So John, question for you. What should borrowers be aware of during the construction loan phase to ensure that smooth transition? We kind of talked about leading up, like the 60 days, 30 days. What else should they be?
Well, the biggest thing that we tell people through this process is when you got your contract, and you did a lot of general contracting yourself, so you may not have seen as much of this, but with a general contractor, they're going to give you estimates of what cabinets are going to be and what lighting's going to be, and they call that allowances. So they're going to give you a bid price, and they're going to give you allowances. I tell my customers, I force my customers to go and shop for those allowances, because that's the biggest thing, where the contractor gives you what they call construction grade. They're going into the box store and seeing what it's going to take to put cabinets in. Well, you're not going to do that. You're going to want Amish-made cabinets, or you're going to want a higher-end cabinet. And many times, your allowances are twice as much as what the contractor bid you. And so now your budget's out of whack. And we've seen lots of people who, even when we tell them to do this, they overspent on cabinets, and now they're scrimping on lights and door handles and doorknobs because they don't have enough construction money left to cover. So that's the thing that we really counsel people on, is to really watch your budget. This isn't an open check. And many people come back after 6-8 months and say, well, we overspent by $20,000. I need to borrow another $20,000 or another $30,000 or even as little as $10,000. The problem that they don't realize is that doesn't mean your house is going to appraise more just because you spent more. So we may be already at our maximum loan to value and don't have the ability to give them any more money. And we've been in those situations many times where we then have to convert to an in-house loan because the house isn't finished, and they're going to have to save some money to finish out some things. And so that's the biggest thing that we tell customers to watch, is that budget. Make sure you're staying on budget. Make sure that you've shopped for the allowances and that you're able to stay within the allowances that you've given yourself or that the builder gave you.
That's good advice. Definitely.
And did you have the ability to stay on budget, or did you see that?
I stayed on budget. Yes,
Good
I think.
For you.
I had a spreadsheet though, and I was very strict on it. And also I had, one thing I've learned too throughout this is like, you just don't go with the first price. I mean, you may go back to the first price, of course, but like you should absolutely be shopping around, because I mean, one of my bills was like a $10,000 difference. And I was just, because I was so emotional and sick of dealing with stuff, I was about to just say, do it. And then my parents thankfully were like, absolutely not. Like you have to shop around.
Yeah.
And so.
And we see that with many borrowers that are doing new construction. So when we tell them to go shop for the allowances, what I generally do is say, go to one of the local lumber yards and look at what costs are off the shelf, just in case, is any of that satisfactory in case you need to cut costs somewhere. But I go ahead and tell them to price out what you want and give that to us so that we can see that you can be within the budget the builder gave you. That doesn't mean you have to buy it from there.
Right.
So if you went and shopped at Southside Lumber and they'll give you tell them what you need, they'll give you a great printout of what all the costs are. If you find that a certain lighting fixture that you like better at Menards, that's fine. You just go buy it at my Menards.
I went to Menards a lot.
You gave us, we're just asking you to do that to make sure that you can find what you want to be within the budget. If you find it cheaper somewhere, or if you find a different product somewhere, by all means, you can.
Congratulations, buy it.
Yeah, you can go buy it and go buy it.
And if you started from a bid with this electrician and found that, oh, wow, a friend of mine recommended a different one and I can go get that done cheaper, that's fine. We don't have any limits on you have to stay.
Yeah, whatever bid you gave us, you don't have to go with that bid. We have to have a bid so you know how much stuff costs.
What are some of the pitfalls? And I know, Ashley, you had a heart attack moment when you were about to close on your loan. What are some of the pitfalls when you're converting from construction loan to that people have?
Some of the pitfalls is higher interest rate. People weren't anticipating that interest rate and they get the payment amount. Another pitfall is taxes and insurance. A lot of people don't realize what the cost of the taxes and insurance are. So a good lender is always going to tell the people, here's what your taxes, what we anticipate your taxes are going to be, what we anticipate your insurance to be when you get done. Because the cost of insurance while you're building is generally a cheaper premium. And with the taxes, you're just paying a land tax bill for right now. So they're not ready for that huge increase. Many times having a shortfall on some monies and having to have used some out-of-pocket money, and now their savings is depleted, and they're looking at, well, I still got to buy curtains and window treatments and all this. I've still got to put furniture in the house. Can I borrow some extra money? Those are some of the common pitfalls. Changing interest rate and changing mortgage payment as many times. Because when you buy new, right now when renters find a home to buy, they're often finding a payment cheaper than what they're paying in rent. When you're building a home, you're often building a house where your payment's going to be more expensive than what your rent was. Or if you have an existing home, you're going to a nicer home that's going to have a larger payment. So that's where we see people really get uncomfortable and, wow, I didn't think it was going to be that much is the comment that we get.
Yeah, for sure.
Talk about when you were getting your credit pulled at the end, how you had, and some people should just be aware of what they're doing. Because I feel like that's
a pitfall that
maybe you can help me explain it. But John, I had said, house is finished, ready to close. Let's get it moving. So he's doing all the things behind the scenes and all the paperwork and everything. And he sends me an email and he's like, hey, underwriters are wanting to know why you had a credit line pulled or...
Well, we look at credit inquiries over the last
that's what
90
I'm trying
days.
to say. Yeah, so I had a credit inquiry in the last 90 days and I'm like, and Jill, you're like, did you sign up for a credit card? Like, I know we're always talking about that. I'm like, no, I didn't. I was like, someone has my identity. I am literally a victim of identity theft right now.
We're like logging on to
so I'm like calling John. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, so hateful towards him. I'm like, what's going on? He's like,
you were hateful. You were. I could just tell you were concerned.
And you're like, just get on annualcreditreport.com and look and see if your credit's been pulled. And you had told me this, like, credit one is what had pulled it. And I'm like, this is insanity. Like, I don't know. I was so nervous, but you were like, well, it could have been one of your lumber yards had done a credit inquiry. I didn't realize that. So I got on there, thankfully, get on annualcreditreport.com. We talk about this all the time here. Got on there, realized it was from one of the lumber yards that I did my cabinetry through. When you open an account at their business, sometimes they'll do a hard pull on your credit because essentially they're lending you
their
stuff for
supplies.
And they might not get paid. So in a weird way, they're kind of like a bank, but with just product. But I was like, whew. And so then I had to fill out another form for you to give to the underwriters to explain, well, this is, this has been paid in full. Like I've paid this account off. This is why they inquired about my credit. Like it's serious, but I was just glad no one saw my identity.
In your situation, you had it to a zero balance, and that's one of the that's another big pitfall that I kind of forgot. Is we tell people don't just start going out and opening charge cards, and don't go out and buy all your furniture on a 90-day same as cash because you want to have nice new furniture in the house.
Just taking out more
loans.
Those
are all new credit. And if you were at a 40% debt ratio with a new house and you've just added $30,000 worth of credit card debt, you may not qualify for that permanent financing.
And then what do? You're just stuck.
Well,
return that furniture.
You are. Unfortunately, the bank is stuck with you because we have the construction loan, and it's not like we're just going to say, oh, well, we're going to take the house. And so we end up having to do an in-house loan and at a higher loan to value than we'd like to. But that means it's a higher interest rate, and it's going to be an adjustable interest rate. So, even more dissatisfied with their whole process. And so that's a big one that I'm glad you brought up, because that's one that we're counseling all the way through the process, because you want this to be a fantastic experience. You don't want to get to the end and think, I wish I would have never done this. So we try to make them aware of all the things to do and not to do. I've been in the mortgage business for 40 years now, and I gave Noah his first mortgage loan on the ARC.
Okay.
I use that often.
Did he open up an account too?
He did an automatic withdrawal. But one of the things that we always said in construction loans with husbands and wives is I actually do a little bit of marital counseling and say, to the husband, you worry about the garage, let her worry about the kitchen. And then I look at the spouse and say, you're getting the kitchen you want, let him be with the garage or man cave, because we've seen the biggest fights with spouses over one who's never going to do anything in the kitchen wants to have a say on what's going in the kitchen. And the wife who's not going to spend any time in the garage is saying, well, why do you need that? Why do you need that? Well, we don't need to spend money on that. So, but it's always been a statement that if a husband and wife can live through building a home, they can live through anything.
I believe it.
She's getting those Wolf appliances, right? No. Right. No. I want you to walk us through the detailed steps involved in converting a construction loan to permanent financing, because I feel like there's a lot there that goes on, and we think it should be, you have all my information, just convert it, roll it over. It should just be done. But there's more to it. So.
Well, we have a loan that, again, is called an in-house loan, where it was written to the bank's standards. It's not necessarily written to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae standards. Or if you're converting to a VA loan, it's not written to the VA standards. So when converting a construction loan over to permanent financing, we're re-underwriting and reprocessing that loan all over again. So we're going to ask, and that's where that 30 days out comes. 30 days out, we're going to ask for, we need 2 pay stubs. We need 2 bank statements. Generally, this has gone on for a year, so we don't have your taxes from the previous year. We're going to have them from 2 years ago. So we just ask for most recent. Like in your case, we asked for 2023 because we already had 2022 information. And then we're going to have to order a final inspection with the appraiser. So we have to kind of know when they're going to be finished to get the appraiser out there ahead of time. But we have to then put all that information together, do a whole new loan application. Sometimes people have changed jobs in that area.
A lot happens in a year.
Yeah, and especially if you're like a union worker, you've gone from one company to another company in that year's time. Some people may have gotten a job promotion. So we have to update that loan application and make sure all the information is still true and correct. And then we submit it all back to what we call an underwriter. Every lender uses what they call an underwriter for the purposes of verifying everything matches Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or FHA, VA guidelines. And so that all has to be packaged together and all shipped. And then we have to update title work because we have to make sure that there's not any mechanics liens. Mechanic lien is when you may not have paid one of your contractors the agreed amount, and they go and file a lien on your house. In the state of Illinois, contractors have superiority over all liens. So mechanics lien is superior to a mortgage lien. So we have to make sure that you've paid all your contractors, you've paid the building company, the lumber yard. That's what I'm trying to think of. We're going to ask you for lien waivers to make sure that they've signed all the lien waivers saying that they've paid everything. So that's another big process leading up to the final financing. So that all takes 2 to 3 week process. And then we sit down and do a normal closing like we do. If you were buying a house, there's going to be a ton of paperwork that you have to sign. And
we had a lot of paperwork.
Yep.
You're like, sign here. I'm like, my hand's cramping up. And I don't know, I probably should have read through all of it, but it was just a giant stack of paperwork. And I figured, I'll come after John if I have a problem. I know where he works.
And again, that's where trusting your lender and dealing with community bank lenders that you can trust that this is standard paperwork and that they're not pulling anything out from underneath you or making you sign something that you didn't know about. So, with internet lenders, you don't have that comfort.
No.
And we've seen people do that where we do a construction loan and then they convert it to one of these internet lenders, and because they think they're getting a better deal. Generally, the closing costs are more. And that's where they get them, as they give them a little bit lower interest rate, but they cover it through the fees and costs that they have. And again, they don't have any comfort that the stuff that they're signing and things like that is a good situation. So we try to encourage borrowers to stay with us. There is an origination fee for the construction loan, but we don't have an origination fee on our traditional permanent financing because we feel like you paid that origination fee. We're not going to charge you another origination fee. And that helps keep that loan with farmers because they'll have an origination fee with a different lender that they go to.
So they'll have that cost.
Right.
I remember just going through my final paperwork, and it was so interesting looking at all the different fees, or like the appraisal or the title work, and just all of these different, it's not even just the bank that works on your house, it's these title companies, these appraisers, like just so many different hands in the pot, like lots going on, lots of people you have to pay to get something done. And so, I kind of, before all this process started, people get mad that houses cost so much money, but there's so much money that's spent not even just on the physical house. It's just people's labor,
the services
that they provide you to get things done correctly.
We try to give them, or I try to give borrowers the idea that about 10% of the cost of this home is just going to be fees and expenses.
It is.
Related to appraisals, title work.
Just working with the city, getting things set up there. You spend a lot of time.
All that.
Recording fees with the county, and just everything.
Yeah. So when people are mad, that you just get to go buy a house and you're like, this is overpriced. It's probably not at this point. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it's not, and you need to go make more money and buy a house. I don't know. It's just expensive. Services are expensive.
Yeah. And that 10% is not necessarily scalable to the loan amount. Usually, you're going to be $10,000 to $20,000 in all the various expenses. So if you build a $500,000 home, your expenses don't necessarily go up to $50,000,
right?
Because an appraisal is $450,000, whether it's $500,000 home or a $250,000 home. But for the average person who's building a $250,000 to $350,000 home, you're looking at $10,000 to $20,000 and just all the different fees and permits, and the water department's going to charge you a tap fee. Those are getting hugely more expensive.
Yeah. So that's another thing to prepare for the end of you rolling over your loan is like, you have to get all these services set up. I'm currently getting internet set up as we speak right now, but
she's got a friend sitting at her house waiting for MediaCom to come out there. She's like,
I'm a busy girl.
We'll be there anywhere from 9 to 5 today.
Yeah.
And then they knock on your door at 5:30 after you finally given up and went to go eat something somewhere.
Yeah,
and then you come home and you got a note on your door saying, we were here.
We missed you. Yeah.
We missed you.
No, but preparing, to get it's just all the city stuff too, going to get your water tapped, like you said, and getting your electricity, your mail, like all this stuff. I'm just like, someone do this for me. I'm exhausted.
And it always feels like the city. I love it, working with them because we're a small community, but it's also, we're open from 9 a.m. Till 11 a.m. Then we take a 2-hour break for lunch and we close at 4. So,
so you can't come in here.
And another thing that people building a home really need to find out ahead of time is with the water department, whoever's going to provide the electrical service, is there a inspection required before you make the connection or turn it on? I'm not going to say what community that you moved in or built your house in for security purposes, but your community didn't have that requirement. A community next door to you does, to where you have to get an occupancy certificate. So they have to have somebody come in from the city who inspects everything and gives you an occupancy certificate before you can literally move into the home.
Yeah, I've heard about those.
My community is very chill. They're like, whatever, just build it, pay it whenever.
Most in our area are, but there are about 3 communities in our immediate area that have an occupancy inspection requirement before you can legally occupy that property.
Now, is that only with new homes, or does that?
No, with some of these communities, it's even buying an existing home.
Really?
You have to, before you can get the electricity turned on, they have to come in and make sure that you've got smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. I don't know all the different things that they check, but they check various things before they'll allow your electricity. So places like Marion or the water department will say, where's your certificate? We can't turn anything on until you have that certificate. And sometimes
one less hoop I had to jump through.
Sometimes people haven't planned for that. And I've known homeowners at closing time who were planning on sleeping in the house that night as their first night, and then the realtor would tell them, or we would tell them, well, you got to have this inspection before you can turn everything on. And they're like, oh no. And you may not get that inspector out there at that time.
Right.
And it's another thing of, well, we'll be there sometime between 9 and 1 o'clock. And so you have to have somebody sitting there waiting for that inspector to get there to do the inspection.
So many things to think about.
Yeah.
Ashley, how did you manage your finances? You said you kept a really good spreadsheet, right?
Yeah. Well, when I started all of this, the first thing I did, I went and got bids from everything that I thought you needed to bid for. Found out there were 20 more things I needed to bid for. So I found that out throughout the process. But I would say just getting the best place to start, I guess, is to just go to, if you're going to be a general contractor like I did, ask a actual general contractor to give you a bid on your house. Like you get your house
build.
plans and then just say, give me a turnkey bid. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
You put the key and you turn it. It's ready to go. I learned that term. So I think that's like the best place to start. And honestly, it is so funny. The turnkey bid that I got that I used for my loan, that's how much money I paid.
Really?
How funny is that?
That's pretty amazing.
So, and also I didn't think that that's how much money I was going to spend. I'm like, you're crazy. And now here I am. But, and then just start getting bids for yourself, kind of throwing that all into a budget sheet. And then really just just get a good Excel budget spreadsheet going. That was like the best thing I did. And I would just have my bid price, have what I actually paid on there, have whether or not I got my lien waiver signed or not, and then whether I paid money with my own cash or through the bank, used my loan. And so it was just went through.
So I have a question. After gone through all this, would you now feel like I wish I would have used the general contractor and the turnkey and not have to do all this work?
Nope.
Okay.
Now, if I was going to go build one again, maybe. But I learned so much, not only about like just construction, but just like all of the processes. And I mean, why would you want to take your knowledge away? I feel so... I've just grown so much, like even as a person, just having to kind of like buck up and deal with like men working in this kind of tougher industry. Like I was a little bit more meek, and now I'm like, nope.
I know. I've listened to some of
people
your
not showing up.
And thankfully I had a really great crew of people. Like I really, really did. Half the people I didn't even see. That was like the funniest part. I would think I'd have to go deal with a bunch of people. I never even like met my painter. Like he just went over, I would text him and say these are the colors, and he would go paint and be done. And
you come
and
home
that was
from
fine.
work and it was done.
Yeah.
It was fun to see like your demeanor change, just hearing you on the phone at work or you're on lunch and you'd be like, hey Bob, just go on it. Ashley developed a kind of construction voice when she was talking to her contractors. Like her macho voice would come out.
When I would first call these people and get bids, I was like so nervous. I'm very social, but like when you don't know,
you don't know what you're talking about.
You're doing, it's uncomfortable. And
you don't want to sound foolish when you don't know what you're...
and it's kind of a man's world. I will say it's kind of a man's world. So it's kind of intimidating just to call people when you have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like so nervous anyway about stuff. I'm like, I'm going to sign up for some sort of concrete contract and I have no idea what I've done. I've consented to something over the phone. Like, but no, I would absolutely do this again. And I've learned so much about money and just also I love that I live in a home that I built. I know where everything is. I know where things are at in the wall. I know where the plumbing's at. I know who I can call. I know who did exactly who did what. So if I have a problem, I'm going to call that person and say, you need to come back and fix this.
Yeah. Now you need to write all that down in case you do sell. You can just hand this binder over to the new buyers and be like, here, this is my book of knowledge. I know everything about it. Because when you move into a house that's already built, that's so much that you don't know.
Right.
Like you don't know if there's well, I mean, that's disclosed, but like where all of the spigots are on the house.
Right.
Or just things that you learn from living in the home. Yeah.
And if somebody put a special shutoff valve to something, they may not remember to tell you that when you buy a house and you're wondering, where's the water turn off? And it's hidden behind this panel. And
so I kind of had the luxury of like sitting with I would say my electrician and my plumber, because they literally went through the valves with me and the electrical box, and they were like, okay, this is how you turn on. And when they come install your stove and stuff, then you can turn this back on, and they need to test it. And so, doing all that was a luxury for sure.
And that's great.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't take the time to do that. Yeah. I really like the fact that you said that you got a turnkey bid on doing the project. We always try to recommend to borrowers to do that, at least to get an idea of what you're going to have to do in this entire process. Because we do have a sheet that we give to customers that kind of has line by line all the different things that are going to be required in a house. But there are still things that can be missed, and people are going to be like, well, I didn't think about that. So getting a turnkey bid gives you a framework for seeing. And as you just said, you pretty much spent all that amount of money. So for somebody who doesn't want the hassle, sometimes you don't save a lot of money by doing it yourself. So, you know, we always encourage people to at least look at a turnkey contract. And that way you wash your hands and you're just picking colors out at that point.
And that was still even hard for me. I had so many paint swatches on the wall. I almost painted my house this terrible cafeteria color yellow. I don't even know what happened.
Well, I think you get like this decision fatigue. Right, exactly. And then you just can't make a decision, and then your time stretches out, and there's time is money when you're in construction. You're just paying that interest, right? So
my mom would be like, Ashley, you just pick something. And sometimes you just have to pick something and just know that it's good enough for now and that you can change a lot of things out. But like you wasting time over some light fixtures, and you're paying them X amount of dollars for pull knobs. I didn't even get them on my cabinetry because I was just crying about it. Like, you can't decide. But well,
it's the same process of a kid going into a mega candy store. You just don't know what choice to make.
It's so funny. All the contractors are like, stay off of Pinterest. Just stay off of Pinterest. And I'm like, but I help it.
So looking back at your entire home building journey, what were the most important lessons you learned? Or what was the most important lesson you learned?
Ooh, lots of lessons. I'm going to stick to my, like, don't go with the first price and just get more. I would get even more bids today. Like some things I would only go with one price, but I would get so many bids, and I would talk to as many contractors as you can. And, I would say be less meek about it. Go into another place of business at a lumberyard and say, this is their price. Can you do better? Like, bargain with people because it's expensive. Don't wear yourself. But then on the flip side, I would say, don't wear yourself out with like always trying to wheel and deal people, because, you know, labor costs money, things cost money. And at the end of the day, if you just do your due diligence, things will work themselves out. Some will be higher, some will be lower. But if you just work the process, have good people, stay on track, like, you're going to end up with a good price that you know you can afford because the bank approved you for it. And don't open any more lines of credits, you know?
Well, one thing that we tell people is don't open a lot of new credit, but take advantage of any credit cards that you have. If you have credit card that you get airline miles or points, go in and use that card, and then we'll reimburse you before you have to make that payment.
The only thing I would say to that,
as opposed to coming to me every day and saying, I need a check for this, I need a check for this. So we tell them, use your credit card, especially for what we call the cash and carry purchases, light fixtures that you're going to go in, you're going to purchase them, you're putting them in your car and taking them back to the house for the builder to put in.
That's a good thing. And I will say this, like, Menards, like, that was my favorite place to go to. You're going to be in the box offices a lot, or is
box
that box stores, not box offices? That's the movie. You're going to be in the box stores a lot, and like, compare Home Depot, Lowe's, and Menards, and whoever else's prices. They have all of the same things. They come from the same distributors, but they price things differently. And so you got to watch that stuff.
And you liked Menards
I
the best?
loved Menards, and maybe they were priced a little higher, and that's how they make up their 11% rebate. But that was awesome when I would get like $200 back in the mail, because then I would go buy stuff like, I would go buy light fixtures or fans or stuff that I needed for my house. And then I felt like I was getting like a really big deal. So it does just make you feel better when you...
Yeah, I've had customers who have built some rather large homes that said, we took a trip off of our points and miles from using that. And they didn't think about it at the start. It was our recommendation to do it. Otherwise, they were just like, I've got to come and get a check every time. And I said, well, not necessarily if you can do this. And I always encourage borrowers to go to a local lumber yard and get everything that's similar to the turnkey contract think about everything that you're going to buy and have them price it out for
Yep.
you. Many times a local lumber yard will give you a 10 or 15% discount. I know a couple years ago I was telling a borrower about this, and they were, well, we're just going to go and we're going to compare Menards, Home Depot, and Lowe's. And I said, well, I'm just telling you, try this, start, and then compare those prices. When you get that mass discount, then compare the individual prices. And if you can buy it cheaper, great. But this will save you from having to go to one and check the other two every time you want to buy something. He ended up getting his discount, and he ended up about 3/4 of the items that they were going to buy were cheaper at the local lumber yard after that big discount without having to go and shop all three places every time.
Yeah.
So, again, as you said, do your due diligence, and, just don't take the first price. At least check. We always recommend to people to check 2 other places at a minimum. But as you said, don't wear yourself out driving to, well, I think the Menards in Paducah may be a little bit cheaper than
and then you spent $80 in gas money when you could have just,
and I've seen people do that. I've seen people drive to St. Louis to buy stuff thinking, well, I can get it cheaper in St. Louis. They'll go to IKEA.
Then you're paying the carrier fee to get it to you.
Right.
Totally true. Well, guys, any last thoughts from a lender's perspective, from a builder's perspective, that you would want to leave with our listeners?
Well, the one thing with construction loans is if you're looking at doing this, have a long sit-down conversation with your lender. Work with an experienced lender that's done a lot of construction loans, where we're going to say, here are the things that you need to be watching for. Just don't think that your lender is somebody that you're getting your loan from. We've dealt with lots of people. Over 40 years, I've gotten the experience of knowing that a local lumber yard may give you a bigger discount than what you can buy separate items. I know getting a turnkey contract may not be the direction you want to go, but it's a great baseline to start with. I've actually seen the couples who got divorced after going through a construction and then had to sell the house as soon as they got the construction done.
Wow.
Honest to God.
They should have taken that trip on their credit card points.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and then, seeing credit card points and giving. So the lender will have a lot of suggestions and a lot of knowledge. Not that they've gone through the process. They've worked with borrowers who have gone through the process.
I would just honestly kind of play off of what you said. There were so many times I would ask, because Polly did my construction loan. And so if I didn't know, or my parents didn't know somebody, my parents are in the construction industry. So like a lot of the time they did know a lot of people. And so that was beneficial. But for someone who, maybe doesn't know a lot of people, your lender is somebody that has gone through it so many times that they know lots of contacts, and they know they've seen the appraisal picture. So they've seen, what looks good, what doesn't look good. So they know a lot of contractors and a lot of subcontractors. And so just, have a relationship with them and ask them who they like and who they don't like, and who, does good work and who's a good price. And just know that they're not just there to like throw you a check. Like they're there to like help you build your house.
Walk through it with you.
Walk through everything and warn you about things, help you with things. And
another thing that I have seen over the years is before you get too far into the process, take your house plans into the lender and talk to the lender about your house plans. Is this going to be marketable? Because your lender, in making the decision for the loan, we're not just looking at, can Ashley afford this? Is she got all of her budgeting taken care of? We're also looking at, well, what happens if Ashley doesn't pay for this? Is this home marketable for this area? We've had I've had many times borrowers bring in house plans with 1 bedroom on the main floor and then bedrooms in the basement, and they don't realize that we can't count bedrooms in a basement. Or they build a house with just 2 mega large bedrooms and 2 mega large bathrooms to go with those bedrooms, and it's like, okay, this is your forever home, but what are your kids going to do when they need to sell this house? What happens if one of you has to go into the nursing home and you've got to sell the house? Is this house going to be marketable? You know, in today's market, if you're going to pay more than $200,000 for a house, you need 3 bedrooms, not 2 bedrooms. And so we give people a lot of help on that. Or another one that's been a big one is they'll build 2 bedrooms and then they'll have an office or a den. And we'll tell them, okay, just make sure you put a window in there.
Yes.
So you can count it as a bedroom.
And put a closet somewhere. And then you can count it as a bedroom when you go to sell it.
Yeah.
So
You can use it as a den, but when you go to resell, with a window and a closet, it's now a 3rd bedroom.
That's so good.
So many things to think about. So talk to your lender. Get a good lender friend.
Well, this has been fun, guys.
So much fun.
I could talk
Maybe I'll build
about this
another one.
all day.
I know I could too.
But
There's so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I've been thinking time's probably flying, and we've probably been here an hour.
I know. But
And you know, the other thing, we haven't even shared horror stories,
Right.
other than the one that I said that a couple actually did get divorced. But I could tell you tons of horror stories with construction loans.
maybe that'll be a
Maybe that we should do.
construction, maybe a Halloween episode.
That's what we'll
Let's
do.
it. I love
That's
it.
good. Yeah.
yeah, I would do it again though. It's been a little stressful, but mostly wonderful people, wonderful process. And now I have reaped the harvest of my
Absolutely.
work. So
Thanks for
very excited.
sharing your story, Ashley.
You're
I feel like
welcome.
you've been vulnerable this whole year with it, and so it's
Yeah.
been fun to learn.
Yeah, and I love to I love to teach people and talk about it. And I'm like, you guys, there's so much you need to know. I'm like trying to tell my friends about it. They're like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'm like, so.
Well, and it's been helpful to us from a bank and lender standpoint because
You've got someone around constantly telling
and
you what's
people
going
that-
on.
People that are going to build a home, we can say, hey, we've got a podcast that you need to watch.
Yeah.
And that
Or just go into that
podcast
girl's office and complain to her.
Yeah.
She'll sympathize with you for sure.
I love it.
And I will. I really will. So, hey, thanks for interviewing me.
Yeah.
And thanks for being on here,
Yeah,
John.
thanks,
It's been
John.
really fun. And thanks for closing my loan. And now you're going to
You're
make me
welcome.
pay a monthly fee. So
Girl.
That mortgage payment is right around the corner.
that's right around the corner. I cannot wait.
I said, I don't think you were there when we did Peach Day. I walked up to Ashley and said, oh, Ashley, we made a mistake on your loan. Your payment actually starts August 1st rather than September.
Oh, no,
And I was
John.
like,
She didn't buy it for a minute. So.
No,
We
I said
wouldn't
you
do
could
that
make my
to her.
first payment. So, yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, thanks again, you guys. And
Absolutely.
for all of our listeners, we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
So, Jill, where do we go from here?
Be sure to check out our show notes for this episode, and also be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.